Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to Spill the Wine.
Or spill the coffee today because it's kind of early for wine.
Yes.
Even I have to admit, it's too early.
It's been a rough week.
It's been a very rough week.
Our topic today is gonna be self-care.
My name is Amanda Santiago.
My name is Adam,
My name is Anna.
and welcome to Spill the Wine. Self-care means something different to each person.
Yes.
I have not been taking very good care of myself this week. I think that I have just been on this treadmill of obligation, and it has been a lot easier for me to disregard how I'm feeling just so I can do what is expected of me. And I think a big part of self-care, for me at least, is sitting with the emotions that you're trying to escape. And when it comes to self-care, we always look for these sort of quick fixes. A quick fix for me is weed. And
Look at his face.
I was not expecting that.
is weed.
I wasn't expecting it either. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
As much as I love good old Mary Jane, it's hard to sort of sift through these emotions that I do need to deal with.
But in general, like, weed is an escape also not to deal with your emotions. And I think that's the problem with self-care. People use self-care as medication with, like, weed, drinking, whatever it is, just to avoid their feelings and not really deal with them. I mean, you can go to the gym and, like, really power yourself out, but you still have to kind of, like, I think that's a good part of self-care.
Yeah.
But it also has to have a part where you, like, talk about it or write it down or whatever it is, just so you're not really avoiding it.
Just some little astrological things that has been happening lately. Mercury recently is direct now, so
Okay.
which
was
has
retrograde again.
It's retrograde.
It's in Gatorade.
It's in Gatorade right now. Okay.
I was just reading a couple of articles, and I just feel like these past few weeks have been so strong on everybody, and probably everyone has been feeling a lot of emotional turmoil from the past.
lot.
I have been feeling a lot of things that have happened a couple of months ago that just resurfaced. But these past few weeks have been very difficult on everybody.
And I think also it is, though, what you're saying, like, if it was hard for the last couple of weeks and you didn't take care about yourself for the last couple of weeks, now everything is surfacing, and this is, like, tough.
Yeah.
I think self-care has to be something that is continuously in your everyday life,
yeah.
and it's not like I'm doing it every day, like I'm stuck at it too.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
And to go back to what you mentioned, it is different for everyone. Like, I
Right.
do agree weed is something so helpful, but
But
I
it
don't want it to be
pacifies
such
the
a...
emotions that you need
Yeah,
to
100%.
go through.
That's why you
Yes,
don't
yes.
dream when you smoke weed and stuff, because your body, like, suppresses
Yeah, I
it.
forget
Yeah.
all my dreams.
Sometimes where I'm even like, I can't smoke right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't, because I'm all in my head, and that's just going to make it worse.
If I
So-
say no to coffee, something is wrong.
Say that, like, weed can't be a part of your self-care regimen. I'm not completely clocking weed. I just know that for me it helps, but there's a certain point where I cross the line between like helping myself by giving myself the help, the weed that I need, or and then just like giving myself a space to sort of like marinate in my filth, so to speak. Self-care is definitely a lot more than just face masks and bath bombs.
Of course not.
Yeah.
It's writing about
It's
it.
writing
you know,
about
like
it.
I recently finished a whole journal yesterday. I just finished my first journal. Usually I just jump back and forth between journals, but I finally finished my first journal that I had written from January till now, the beginning of spring. Just looking through it, and I realized how much I've grown. You know, there's some things that you go through, and then you read through it, and you're like, holy shit! Like, I overcame this, and you don't even acknowledge that part of yourself. You know, so I think a huge, at least this works for me, is writing about it.
I write too, but I also just journal when I feel bad, and I think that's a bad thing, because I always look
Why is
bad.
that a
necessarily.
bad thing?
But also because I only look back and I read those things and I'm like, oh, I'm miserable all the time, even though there are like months in between where I'm not saying nothing and I'm in a good place. But looking back at it, it seems like, oh, it's negative, even though it's just a part of the whole situation. So I think journaling should be something that you do not only when you're feeling low and negative, and I think that's when it helps the most. But also when something good happens, you should write it down. You know?
I disagree.
Okay.
I feel like it's more like if you feel like it's necessary to write in that moment, then that's the way you go through it, you know?
Yeah.
Like often a lot of times I used to be the type to always write about times that were negative in my life, but then I realized that's the only way that I'm able to explain how I'm feeling, you know?
Yeah.
I have a whole journal that I wrote last summer that is completely all about heartbreak and disappointments that I have felt at the time. But looking back, I'm like, holy shit, none of that mattered.
I think there are pros and cons to that because, like, you can list all the things that are, you know, negative, so to speak, but then you could read back on them and see how much you've grown.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of this therapist that I had at one point, Debbie, if you're watching.
Imagine she's taking notes.
Probably.
Adam.
Debbie, if you're out there, this really helped me out. Like, when we first started, she had me write down, like, all of the good things in my life and all the things that have sparked happiness in my life. And I remember, like, when I would write them down and list them all out according to how they, you know, happened in the week, I felt a lot happier because I was like, well, you know, my life isn't shit all the time, but it is sometimes.
It's also the way that you write also. Like I realized, and this is just something that I realized this year, where sometimes the best things in my life only come out through poetry. Isn't that really
That
weird?
you realize that there were the nice things?
Like I'm only able to write about things if it's only through poetry. Like positive things, only if it's through poetry. But if it's something that I'm going through that is really negative and something that has been tearing me down, I can only explain it if I'm explaining it word by word. Exactly, specifically how I felt at that time.
And also,
it really depends.
And also, we live in this culture that's sort of like prioritizes like happiness as being the default emotion, and I feel like that's so damaging to your own like personal growth because your productivity and your happiness don't have to be like mutually exclusive. Like you can get shit done and still feel the way that you authentically feel, you know, as opposed to just putting on a smile because that's what is expected of you. People don't feel like you're...
People in Germany definitely not
I was
put
just
on
gonna
a
ask
smile.
you. I was gonna
They
ask
never
you, like,
smile.
does that idea exist in German culture where it's like they have the whole McDonaldized like personality and like
McDonald's?
yeah, like
I mean, I understood it.
you know what I mean? Like the hello, how are you?
Like,
Like
I was like McDonald's. That's so
yeah.
weird. No, I don't think so. I think I mean I can speak for myself. Not every German is like me, but I think in Germany it's not like a very superficial thing that people do over here. It's like, hey, how are you? And don't mean it and like walk by you. And over there it wouldn't be like. People don't just smile because it's very social, but they go along their way. And I think it would be nice to find a middle where Germany and the US find itself. So I like the positive thing about the US and I like the productivity in Germany, but I think if it could find itself and German people would smile more and American people would find some of the German ways, I think that would be the best middle. But care is such a topic where we would want to know what you guys are thinking.
Yes.
So definitely write something what you're doing as self-care so we can learn from it, because I think self-care is something that nobody of us has really figured out yet.
Right.
Otherwise we would be like...
Otherwise I wouldn't have been late today.
For real.
Sorry guys.
So how are you able to differentiate what is self-care to you and what is not? Like what is something that you go through where you're able to recognize like this isn't going to help me? Or this will definitely help me, because I feel like me being 20 years old, often a lot of times when I go through things, I have a hard time seeing if it's going to help me or not until I do it. And then I realize like, okay, this is something I can't do it again. I can't do it again.
I think self-care is something like I went boxing the other week.
How was
and I
that?
think that really helped me because I was like, damn, this is so physical and I can let shit out even though I don't have to talk about it. So I think there's always a mix. Like, I think you should talk about it because I have you guys and I talk about things. You should do something physical too, so you can let because everything is stored in the body.
It is. It's so. And I was just gonna say, like, that reminded me of how, like, when you're going through the motions and you're building up all this emotional turmoil, reach out to people. Like, let people know how you're feeling. Because I know for me, I feel like I'm handling my emotional turmoil by staying quiet about it. And even though I'm quiet about it, even though I may, write it down sometimes, it does help if you do let somebody in your circle know, I'm not having the best day today. I feel like shit. I'm gonna get what I need to get done, but today is just not my day, and that's valid.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think especially for guys, it's really hard to do that too
Yeah.
and articulate when they have a problem,
Yeah,
because
it's so hard.
society doesn't let guys have problems in like an emotional way. I
Yeah.
think if they have a problem, it's like at the job or financially, but if they really struggle with their emotions or whatever is making them not taking care of themselves, like doing self-care. A lot of people think self-care is something for women.
It's not.
No,
And it's
of
really
course
not.
not.
Like, I think it's really important that guys take care of themselves too, because we can see what happens,
Absolutely. Self-care
Yeah.
for me is building a relationship between you and yourself.
And finding
The-
that friend in yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Also.
Like the building a relationship between like the me part and the person that you present to the rest of the world.
But what do you actually do as self-care? Like for me, I go into the city, I don't know where I'm going, and I just walk left to right and left to right.
I
And
do the same
I
thing,
really
yes.
like that.
I just realized that writing is just something that I always lean on when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling happy even. Like writing or just like listening to music also. Like I think I find artistic ways to release the suppressed emotions that I have. So, for example, putting on a playlist, creating a whole playlist.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of mood that I've been feeling lately.
Like
you know?
what I do personally, because like I see a therapist, and like that helps me a lot. Like I think it's great to seek therapy, and for anybody that is interested, because you have a room where you can fill the room with your with your shit. You can unload, and you have that time and that space for yourself, where you can sort of like take all these emotions that you have been receiving and just like in a room, and then your therapist is just like, oh, that's great.
But I think also with a therapist is that you don't have to upload all your shit on your friends, because sometimes they have their own things that
That's
they
true.
do.
Yeah.
So putting everything on them, and then you feel like you don't receive the kind of care that you
That you're
need
looking
from
for.
them. It's not because they don't love you or they can't give it, because they can't give it to you.
Yeah.
And a therapist is there to like sit there for an hour and like listen to you specifically, whereas friends has their own things going on, and it's
Right.
hard for them to like deal with their own things
Yeah.
and deal with your things, even though they want to help you. But sometimes I feel you can feel like neglected if
Yeah.
they don't
Right.
respond in a certain way.
Like what you were saying about how like you're not being heard in the way that you want to be heard.
yeah, definitely.
I feel like a therapist is good for that, because like true, you can vent to your friends, but is your friend gonna be in the right mindset?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
that's another thing too. Emotional tamponing.
The emotional tamponing.
This is Anne's favorite phrase.
What a weird phrase.
And I think
It's perfect though.
I
it's
know.
true, because it's like you don't want to be the
I didn't
friend.
make that up, by the way.
I did.
Copyright.
I think it's. Let's just say that I did make it up. But you don't want to be the friend that's just like constantly unloading like shit. Like you meet up, you're just trying to go for drinks, and then they're just like, oh well, when I was 7, my cat died, and
Oh,
you know,
yes.
I think that there's a fine line. I think before you vent to somebody, you almost want to check in with that friend to see, are they in the right state of mind to sort of like receive everything that you're trying to unload, because that's not fair.
And I feel like there are particular nights for that also. Like, for
True.
instance, when you go out with friends and you specifically go out to really to escape the feelings that you have been feeling. I feel like it's necessary to make that known. Like, hi, I'm here to have a good night. I'm not here to talk about problems.
Are you talking about a specific night?
I don't know.
No, not with you
I'm gonna
guys.
look at my
No.
Some caramel ice. This is not an ad. We should cover our labels.
For real. And you're like,
No, as a matter of fact, sponsor me.
yo, imagine a coffee. That would be self-care for me. If a coffee shop would sponsor me, I would be like, okay.
That would be self-care.
That would be
Still the
self-care.
coffee.
It would. It would.
We can do an episode in your coffee shop, by the way, just if you're watching.
If you're interested.
Definitely.
One thing that I will say about self-care is you would never talk to other people the way that you talk to yourself when you're angry.
Oh.
So I think a lot of self-care is being there for yourself when you want nothing to do with yourself, building that relationship, but also learning how to be kind to yourself, separate from all the things that are expected of you. Like, what do you want, and what can you do to make yourself feel better?
Also, another thing that I realized worked out for me, I live in a duplex, and going up the stairs of up to my room, there are pictures on the wall, and the pictures are baby photos of me, baby photos of my sister, all those stuff. So usually, often, a lot of times when I walk up to my room, I look at a photo of myself, and it helps me realize, you know, like, I was a child once. Like, obviously I can't remember that time. It's like a daily reminder that, okay, there's still a child in me, that inner child that I have.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yes, like, I would never speak to baby me like that.
Like that, yeah.
So it helps me really, like, cleanse the way that I speak to myself. And honestly, I completely just changed my vocabulary when it came down to speaking to myself. I stopped saying things like, I hate myself.
Yeah.
I stopped saying, like, oh, that, like, you know, like, society has this way
being
of
very hard to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Society has a way of, like, telling you how you're supposed to speak to yourself, like calling yourself trash, calling yourself, like, negative things, and that's not the way that you should speak to yourself. You have to start. Affirmations are so important.
Yeah.
Saying I love you, saying I'm so proud of you.
A wise black man in a blonde wig once said,
Who's that?
I don't know.
if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you gonna love anybody else?
Who was that?
Ooh, comment below if you know who that is.
Ooh, yeah.
Do you know who that is? Oh, okay.
I know that sounds really corny, but it's true. Like, you owe it to yourself to love yourself, and when you live in a society that profits off of your self-hatred, loving yourself, the act of loving yourself, is revolutionary. Do yourself a favor and revolt.
Another thing that you have to be able to understand is that alone time is very important.
It is, but
it is
yes,
important
go ahead.
because things such as meditating
Yeah.
or simple things like taking a nap. Like, I realized I used to shame myself for being alone and, like, taking that time to really just, like,
Yeah.
regenerate and recharge myself, but I realize it's what I need.
Right.
A long day out into the world is draining.
But I also
So
think you
draining.
have to find a balance too, because
course,
it's
for
like
sure.
if you only nap and like smoke weed, it's like,
No,
are you
no,
really
yeah, of
taking
course.
care of
Yeah,
yourself?
there
I think
are
everything
pros and
is a
cons.
balance.
You want to give yourself the alone time that you need, but like I was saying before, like, if you have to, you know, reach out, or if you have to force yourself to reach out, because sometimes we feel like we're stronger because we decide to be alone, but then you could end up doing more damage than
New
good.
Yorkers.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. New Yorkers, that's another thing that announcement that I want to make real quick. It is no longer cool to act as though you have no feelings.
Yes.
What's the new wave? Crying on the subway.
Yeah.
Yup. Crying on the subway loud enough for people to hear you.
And New
I've
Yorkers
done it
also.
before,
Oh
yeah.
yes, of course.
And then the lady can
Comment below
okay.
if you've cried on the subway.
Yes, of course. Like, New Yorkers have
Nobody
this
would
thing
want
where
to
they
admit
just
it.
have this hard exterior,
Yeah.
try to make it seem like, you know, we have it all together, and we
don't.
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 We are completely not together. We are
Yeah.
messy, but I mean, it's beautiful.
And I think
At the
that
same time, it's beautiful.
within the recent years, like, the self-care and self-love has been such a huge thing in, like, mainstream culture, because, like, I think we're beginning to slowly realize that, like, we're not machines.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just somebody that is going to just, like, produce things that you expect from me. Like, I'm a human. I have history. I have things that I feel really strongly about. I have things that I don't care about, and you owe it to yourself to honor that.
And people also think that they must suppress their emotions in order to get through it, and I completely disagree. I feel like you have to ride the wave of your emotions. If you're feeling sad, acknowledge that you're feeling sad and cry. I mean, there's no shame in feeling the emotions that you feel, because often, a lot of times, people have a problem with that. There is a reason you're feeling these emotions. It's because if you push them to the side, you will never overcome them.
Yeah.
Never.
They will just explode one day.
Absolutely. And that happened to me. I feel like you shouldn't, you know, your emotions are so much more ambiguous.
I'm getting overwhelmed.
Me too, right? Like,
I just feel like it's such a touchy topic that
Yeah.
no one knows nothing about, but everyone knows
Should know
about it.
something.
I feel like a lot of people know about this, but I think that there's such a stigma with self-care, and there's such a stigma with emotions that aren't happiness, because like I said before, like we equate productivity with happiness. So it's like, how can you get things done if you're sad? I've done my best work sad.
Yes,
You know what I mean? Like,
I've
you know?
created things sad,
Yeah.
and it's my best work. You're completely right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean like we telling you.
Like,
you
be
should be
sad.
sad.
No.
No, don't do that.
Take
But-
care of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's just
That's
like
what-
there are beautiful things that you can take out of being sad,
yeah,
and
that's
you know, like it's
Yeah.
it all happens for a reason.
That's true. And I think we're gonna sum this up by saying comment who the quote is from, also
Yes.
what you do as self-care,
Please.
and we had a third one. If you cry on the subway.
Yeah, please cry on the subway, and also a huge thank you to the people who suggested this topic. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Lovey, thank you so much.
Yes.
And please keep the suggestions coming, because we're
We love
bridging
it.
gaps.
We do.
We love it, and let's start a conversation. Let's talk about things that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
And
important to
comment
speak
so we
on.
know what you think.
Yes, please.
Okay. Have a good Friday.
Love you.
Or
Take
Monday,
care.
whenever.